The Hunger Games, released last year, was a very mediocre film, but its sequel, Catching Fire, was a welcome surprise in that it turned out to not only be a great film, but one of the best films of the year. Catching Fire takes place a year after the events in the Hunger Games, with Katniss, Jennifer Lawrence, and Peeta's, Josh Hutcherson's, act of defiance against the Capitol sparking rebellion in Panem's districts. In an attempt to get rid of Katniss and quell this rebellion, President Snow, Donald Sutherland, initiates the Quarter Quell, a special quarter-century version of the Hunger Games in which the contestants are all former winners. Katniss must now face hardened, experienced tributes in this much more dangerous contest, and meanwhile the uprising continues to grow. Catching Fire fixes everything that I didn't like about the first Hunger Games film. The sequel contains much more subtle satire about reality TV and the drawbacks and emptiness of celebrity status. The ambiguity of Katniss and Peeta's relationship is directly addressed and played as part of the point, as President Snow demands that Katniss maintain the pretense of a romance with Peeta so that their stunt with the poisonous berries looks like an act of love and not of defiance. Catching Fire is more visually appealing than the first film, as it has better effects, a less garish capital A aesthetic, and a more interesting game setting in the form of a jungle around a saltwater lake. The action is significantly better shot and more powerful than in the first film, and, in the biggest improvement, Catching Fire is highly suspenseful, as you care and fear for Katniss and the other characters because of both the disturbing hazards and the other tributes in the arena, but also from Snow's Machiavellian threat that he will kill Katniss's friends and family if she keeps provoking dissent. Unlike the largely dull, flat first film, Catching Fire contains heavy tension. Catching Fire also benefits from a diverse cast of characters, whereas the tributes in the first film are pretty bland and interchangeable. My favorites are the calculating intellectual Beetee, the preening show-off Finnick, and the feisty Johanna. With most of the tributes being disillusioned with the Hunger Games, and several, including Katniss, forming an alliance to protect each other, the film does seem to negate the possibility of infighting or betrayal, but this still serves a conflict regarding Katniss and President Snow, as Snow wants Katniss to destroy her own heroic image, thus silencing the rebellion, by turning on her allies. Anyway, Catching Fire features many cool new characters along with several familiar faces, such as the subtly sinister President Snow, the endearingly hammy Caesar Flickerman, Katniss's pragmatic yet washed-up mentor Haymitch Abernathy, and Effie Trinket, who is given more human dimension this time round. The film has gripping tension as you constantly fear for Katniss's immediate survival and the safety of her loved ones. But I also love how the film effectively juxtaposes a grim mood of oppression as Snow tightens his cruel grip on the districts and plots Katniss's downfall with a sense of hope, as Katniss continues to inspire the districts toward freedom and the tributes band together to work against the Capitol. But this hope can still potentially backfire on Katniss, as you are aware that her image as a revolutionary causes the district's rebellion to progress outside of her control, thus putting her family further at risk and generating an additional layer of unease. While still not very graphic, Catching Fire is surprisingly dark for a young adult adaptation, with some disturbing imagery, such as poison fog and birds with human screams, on top of the bleak, arduous atmosphere. Catching Fire doesn't get everything right. Peeta is still too weak and uninteresting to be a good central character, and his and Katniss's fake relationship gradually developing into a real one is unconvincing. Katniss and her true boyfriend, Gale, Liam Hemsworth, also have poor chemistry. It's also unsurprising when Plutarch Heavensbee, Philip Seymour Hoffman, the new game director, turns out to be an undercover good guy. But overall, Catching Fire is a surprisingly great film that vastly improves on the original in a year full of films that surpass their predecessors. Catching Fire earns 4 stars out of 5. Thanks for watching. Cheers.